again. Why? 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 Why even try anymore?
Welcome
to
Phil Show.
Why? Why?
I told you I warned you what my new goal was.
I know we were finally getting into a groove with the welcome, and then now it's just crazy.
That was about as bad as I could make it. I think I'm not going to challenge myself to try harder.
I think it's funny.
And I'm Team Phil, so I'm just here to help him out. I'm just here to help him out with the chaos.
You can 1v2.
Yeah. I did max out the cable thing today working out, so.
Dude, I
humble brag.
I still have sweat. I feel disgusting. I hate this.
You are disgusting, but not because you stink. We tolerate.
I'm gonna leave.
Oh my goodness. All right. Okay. So this week, right off the bat, the first thing I wanted to talk about was the Discord. So I've had a few people reach out to me because they're really confused and they're like, hey, I've been trying for months to get into the Discord. I can't find it. Good. So in order to get into the Discord, you have to message us on some form of platform. It doesn't matter what platform you message us on. It can be on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or you can email us. Our email is biblicallyaccurateBigfoot@yahoo.com. So you have to initiate the contact with us because we have kind of a closed server to protect the integrity of the server. So you cannot get in unless you message us, and then we will give you a link to join. So if you've been looking for a link and you're one of those people that's like, I've been looking for it every time you bring it up, but I can't find it. Yes, you're not going to. So message us, get into the Discord. You don't want to miss the conversations. They've been kind of unhinged lately. It's been good.
Quick side note on the email thing. I didn't remember that was our email address.
Yeah.
Do you know how happy it makes me that you didn't have to put any numbers to get that name?
Yeah.
Like, no one had thought of that name. That makes me so proud. I know. I'm proud of that name.
That's great.
And Yahoo's been around forever. So
yeah.
Yep.
Forever.
That's I tried a couple shorter versions, but then that one was. But yeah, it's easy to remember because it's like Biblically Accurate Bigfoot at Yahoo.
Yeah.
All lowercase. The second thing I want to do is shout out to the TV Guys podcast. So they had me on. They apparently they're on top of things because they record like 3 months out. Like I recorded this with them a while ago, and I was like, "Hey, when will this air?" And they're like, "In June." And I was like, "I'm not going to remember that. You'll have to message me." And he messaged me, and he's like, "Hey, dude, it's going to air this week." So if you want to hear me on the TV Guys, so they talk all things TV. Give them I'm giving them a shout out. They talk all things TV. Those dudes, man, they love TV. And we talked about Lost. We talked about the top 3 and bottom 3 flashbacks in Lost.
I remember you talked about that. Was a long time ago. You were telling me that you were on. It
was a while ago.
Yeah, I had forgot that you even did that until you just said that.
Yeah. So go check out their podcast. They're great dudes. It's a lot of fun, and they do a lot of things. From if you're a fan of The Office, they do a lot of Office breakdowns. I love those episodes of theirs, and I keep hinting that they need to bring me on something other than Lost, and they keep bringing me on the Lost episodes. Just kidding. I love Lost because it's right up our alley with Biblically Accurate Bigfoot. But yeah, go check them out. I want to give them a shout out because they have brought me on their podcast a couple of times, and they're really cool. Outside of that, we played Energy Drink Roulette again.
We did.
So
this time with Gorilla Mind.
Yeah, we're going with Gorilla Mind because we're on the part 2 of, and I was kind of thinking it's probably going to be a little bit of hypnosis, but it might just be brain things, just like mind.
And you kind of can't talk about hypnosis without it being just understanding your brain.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we figured we'd go with the Gorilla Mind. So I mean, you can't go wrong with Gorilla Mind. All their flavors are good, but I feel like I got my least favorite of the.
I got probably still my favorite. The black cherry vanilla is so freaking
That's my
good,
second
dude.
favorite.
See, and Bill's is my least favorite over there. So I got the bombsicle.
And I got the tropic storm. And so I'm the only one that got one so you both got your favorites? Is that your favorite?
Of the ones I've tried, yeah.
So you both got your favorites, and I got my least favorite.
Yep.
I guess I got I took the bullet.
I'd say my second favorite's probably the lemonade one.
We should have.
What one is that? There's
the
raspberry lemonade.
Yeah,
I saw that one.
that
I
one?
almost
We
grabbed
should
it.
have got that one instead of the tropic storm, because then we would all be happy. But now I get to be
Hey,
sad.
I'm
just kidding. I love this flavor too.
I took the worst C4, which is actually bad, last week, so you can handle that.
Are you complaining?
No, you are, and I'm telling you not to.
I'm gaslighting you, Phil.
I know.
All right, are we doing one at a time? Phil, go.
Oh, all right.
Competition. All right, that was good. Oh, Mike, man. All right.
Ooh, that was like
You have
crunchy.
cracked so many beverages out of a can,
That's-
dude. Why is this?
We determined that Mike won the last competition. Listening to it back, it was very clear Mike won that one. So, in the comments, tell us who won the crack off. The crack cack.
the can crack-a-lackin'.
Speaking of brain stuff, are you having a stroke?
The can crack competition. What else can you call it?
Crack-a-can. The crack-a-can. The crack-a-can competition.
Oh my gosh! Comment who won.
Or if you've got a cool name for it,
Yeah, or if you
throw a
can think of a
in there.
name that's better than Crack Can. Jimmy Crack Can, and I don't care.
I love his whistle laugh. Can I just tell you that? I love Phil's whistle
My
laugh.
nose.
Phil's whistle laugh is one of my favorite things.
Every time he... Oh my gosh, that hurts so bad. Oh, we're starting this one off with a bang. Gorilla Mind. You brought up his laugh, and it made me focus right as I was trying to swallow, and it just all came right back up my nose. All of it, the whole drink.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, if you can come up with a better name, or you just want to rank, let us know who won. We'll keep a tally, and by the end of the summer, whoever wins the crack can competition gets a prize. I don't know what that prize will be. It'll be crack. It went off my nose again.
You're supposed to drink it.
Well, he thought it was crack. He thought it was crack. He's snorting it.
So is the equivalent of liquid energy drinks to pre-workout how you dry scoop? So with energy drinks, is you snort it? Is that the equivalent?
If anybody's
Not recommended.
it
Oh my
just
gosh.
makes me think of the scene where he's snorting protein powder through a dollar bill. My esophagus don't work.
Oh, wow.
I see that focus is going to be an issue. Focus is going to be an issue today.
Well, welcome to the show. Oh my God.
How do you feel right now?
I can breathe out of my nose really well, surprisingly. The caffeine must dilate. Legitimately, I can breathe very well. the
New allergy treatment.
The stuff that went into my lungs, on the other hand, that burns a little bit. Oh my
can seemed to be like filled and overcarbonated.
Hey, I was just
Kinda
gonna-
like the clear American.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say mine poured out
Yeah,
onto
mine
my
like
leg.
fizzed
Like,
over. Mine fizzed over and like
Yeah.
filled the whole rim.
yeah, mine was clear up to the edge of the rim when it opened up.
Shout out Gorilla Mind for giving
Not
me
messing around.
the most bang for my buck.
I don't know where mine was at because I was fighting for my life off of that first drink. So it might have been a little full, and maybe that's what happened.
And just so you know, I have zero rescue instincts. I am here to watch the chaos. Like that is just who I am,
Perfect.
So
Speaking
So
of
in
chaos,
the fight or flight, you flee.
I don't flee. I sit and watch. I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see how this thing plays out. That's
Wow. That's good to know.
Yeah.
So don't die.
Yeah. So side story, we went out to our parents' place and we were out there looking through stuff, and we go out to the shop, and my wife, Beth, she walks up to the door, and this huge barn owl swoops down over her head. She screams. I just stood there and watched, and I was like, wow, that was a big owl. And she was really mad at me because I zero rescue instinct. Like, it could have picked her up and taken her to the tree, and I'd be like, wow, you might want to get out of there.
Hey, you. It's like the delayed reaction. It flies off. Watch out. Oh my gosh. I don't know what I do, because I've I came upon like wrecks where I just literally, there was this one dude. It's not a laughing matter because the dude ended up passing away, but there was a wreck on Highway 20. And it literally had happened right in front of us. And I pulled over, and Courtney's like, "What are you doing?" And I just left her and took off to go see if the dude was okay. And I just did it without even thinking. I didn't even tell Courtney. So she's like, "What are you even doing?" And I didn't answer her. And she was
so zombie apocalypse. You're the guy running in, tossing bodies. I'm the guy kind of watching from the top of the building, just shouting no, to the left. You want to go left. That's
Phil,
me.
Who are you?
Probably the guy in the wreck.
Touche. That was a good high five. That was a good answer. That was a good answer. That caught me off guard. I like it.
In the ancient days of giants, when the earth was wild and free, a creature roamed the valleys, cloaked in mystery. Is he born of angels' blood and man, a Nephilim so tall, or a shadow of the fallen, yet heeding the Maker's call? He's a biblically accurate Bigfoot, with a lineage from the skies. Not a myth or legend, but a truth that never dies. Is he a remnant of the Nephilim, a titan standing tall? Or does he have the word of God upon him, the last to hear the call?
All right. So let's get into the episode. Did you guys see the Joe Rogan interview with the mentalist? We talked about it a little bit while we were working out.
I didn't. You're gonna have
clips or anything?
No, you're gonna have to tell me about it.
So I purposely didn't tell you when we were working out because I thought that you said you hadn't seen it. So basically, Joe Rogan had this mentalist on. This is what happens when you snort energy drinks. Your brain, anyway, crack. So he has this mentalist on, and the mentalist is he's doing the normal mentalist thing, don't tell me this and I'll guess it and blah blah blah. He straight up is guessing and figures out what Joe Rogan's PIN number is to his credit card and shows him. And Joe, the best way I can explain the reaction on his face was, it was at that moment Joe Rogan realized that he is trained and trained and trained to defend himself physically. And at that moment, he realized he needed to do more to train himself mentally.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was upset.
He
looked like he wanted to murder this dude.
I'm gonna have to find this.
I already right off the bat, I'm just throwing out words we need to edit. But he straight up was like, this dude's dead. and he's just like, I'm gonna there's something's fishy. Something's fishy here.
Yeah.
And so he's immediately trying to discredit this dude. And this guy just it's worth the watch. But that little clip, if you don't want to watch the whole
glaring and he's just his eyes are narrowed. He's frowning. He's just like, what was that?
It's crazy.
Because he's a thinker.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan's a deep thinker.
Yeah, he's a sharp dude.
You start messing with that brain, he doesn't like it.
But it was okay. The funniest part about it was he goes, the mentalist goes, yeah, you just said that right off the top of your head, but I bet if I gave you a little bit longer to think about it, you'd have changed your answer. And Joe Rogan's like, no, I wouldn't have. And the mentalist is like, well, yeah, probably. And Joe's like, no, I wouldn't have. And he's like, okay, is this your PIN number? And then Joe's like, wait a second. Like, this dude is like telling
'cause-
Joe, like, you would have done this different. And Joe's like, no, I wouldn't have.
Because he asked
And
him to
then,
just give him a fake pin, right? That's
Yeah,
the first
told
thing
him
he
to give
does.
him a
He's
fake-
like,
fake
he's
pin
like,
number.
Give
Right.
me a fake number. Give me a number that's not your pin.
Yeah, and he said 2020.
And then and he's
Yeah.
like, okay, so you repeated it, and Joe, like, you see him start to be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
like he starts to get real like,
because he's like
leery.
the first number, so the last number has to be this, and then at that
he
moment
just works
Joe's
his way
like,
through it, and Joe just starts
what is happening?
starts to get the look on
And
his
Joe
face.
even straight up said, he's like, even my wife doesn't know that number. So and then he's like, well, I did get mailed that, so maybe he intercepted and like just like trying to explain it away.
trying to figure out some kind of reason for it. Huh.
This dude is, and for a mentalist, I mean, if you know what mentalists are doing, you like, I feel like a little bit, if you understand what mentalists do, you can counteract them pretty easily for the most part, if you're cognizant, because you almost have to throw fake body language out without letting them know that you're throwing fake body language out.
Yeah.
That's really the main, in my mind at least, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this dude would read me like whatever, but I feel like a majority of mentalist, what they do is body language.
I wonder if a mentalist could do their little tricks with another mentalist, or if he would, would understand the game enough that he could
Wizard duel.
fool him. Yeah, like
Right.
like a wizard duel. Yeah.
Well, it's like, those things that they're like, pick a random number and then do this and then do that, and there's the pattern, and because of the pattern, it forces you into a certain like letter.
Right.
And then so it's like the letter happens to be an F, but because there's been 15 steps, you don't realize the only letter that's possible is F. And then they're like, think of a frog, but because they've kind of predisposed you to think like wetland or whatever, you think frog because they've let those hints in there. So the first thing you think of is frog, and they're like, if you're thinking of frog, share this. Well, the problem is once you like know the way that the game is played, you no longer, it's like your brain starts fighting against it, and you're like, okay, so everything in me wants to say frog, so I'm going to say flamingo, And so so you start to like, they get them wrong quite a bit, but then every once in a while somebody will throw one out, and I'm like intentionally, okay, they want me to say frog, so I'm going to say, and like flying bat or something, and they're like, if you said flying bat, and then I'm like, okay,
so
what?
That one was for me.
They purposely.
Well, and I'm looking at it thinking in terms of like the counseling world, and I've talked about me going to a counselor and things like that. But when my counseling skills are better than the counselor I'm going to, I'm not benefiting from that counselor because now I'm playing a game.
Right. Yeah.
And I just kind of picture two mentalists going at it like that.
And
which one's playing?
Who's better at the game?
I feel like I got a little bit of that last week with the hypnosis thing, because like we had talked a whole bunch about what you were going to do, and so I was trying to like not think about it as you were guiding me through it and like getting me into it, but like it's so hard.
Well, and that's one of those brain things
I'm
that we
so
talked about.
bad
Yeah.
at relaxing and not thinking. Like I have terrible insomnia. I can't shut my brain down. Like I have, like it's just a problem. And so like you did a good job. Like you still kind of got me into that state of like, okay, I'm very relaxed and like meditating.
I could tell by the breathing I had to edit. My goodness, Phil.
No, so it's not that
Well, that was one of the things when we listened to it. One thing we noticed, me and my family, we listened to it, when we were driving the other day, and that's one thing we noticed, because Phil talks a lot and fast, and when we got into it at the end, he's just like truck, wheat. So on some level it worked, and I didn't, and I didn't want to like get into it either.
Right.
And and like I said, I'm not a professional.
it worked, but
either,
like
but
when you were telling me early on, like you can't move your fingers or toes, I had to like tell myself, don't try to move your fingers or toes, because like that everything in me is screaming like, fight it, like don't just. I'm so anti what I'm told to do. Like I have to like be able to
and so
like,
what you're saying is I created compliance in somebody who doesn't normally comply, and I didn't do that by any other thing than just the environment that we created,
So that you just said something very profound.
I do that sometimes.
Okay, so the nature of this podcast, we talk about everything. And you just said created compliance by controlling the environment. Is that what you said?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Are there organizations that might do something like that?
what?
Sarcasm.
So I wonder if one of those organizations is the CIA. Speaking of the CIA, man, this was a great transition, Mike. Good job. According to, have you been paying attention to any of the Poof Diddler? If you remember, I'm not going to say the word. He's a musician who's on trial for very heinous crimes. But
Musician's a strong term, in my opinion.
he had some bangers back in the day, man.
Okay.
He had some bangers, but
Maybe just not my style. I don't know.
it isn't your style
They're
because
just not old enough.
You can understand the lyrics, and so it's not your style.
I need more breeze.
But the diddler, we call him the diddler on this show.
Yep. I picked up on that.
So have you guys been paying attention to the diddler case at all?
I've been
Not recently.
scrolling right past it every time I see it because I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah. So guess who? You'll literally never guess, but I'm going to make you guess anyway. Guess who basically got outed in the trial as a CIA asset? I'll give you a hint. He's an actor. Okay.
Do we have to use a code name?
Yeah. No, on this one you don't. On this one you don't. This guy, you'll literally never guess. But
Can we use a code name?
yeah,
I like code names.
use a code name.
Okay.
Do it. All right. So he was in a series of spy movies in the 2000s.
Okay.
Suspicious.
He was an out of time spy, so to say. In his movies, he likes to play more than one character.
Mike Myers?
Mike.
Oh, I did see that
Myers.
when I was flipping through. Yeah.
Mike Myers
I
got
did see a
outed
picture,
as a CIA
and they
agent.
said he was a CIA agent. I did see that.
His personal
Officer. They prefer the
CIA officer. Thank you. By the way, the officers that are listening.
Oh,
to
code
this-
name Austin Powers.
Oh yeah. There you go.
groovy, baby.
But yeah, so straight up in the trial, his assistant or one of Diddler's assistants basically said that she was responsible for booking private and confidential CIA tours and meetings and exclusive high up meetings and one-on-one meetings and all this other stuff, and just basically like if he's not a CIA asset, he's CIA. He's one or the other.
Right.
Just straight up outed him. He's out. He's out.
What's crazy is it didn't surprise me as much as I thought it might.
I agree.
Because that has happened since way back. They made a whole movie about the guy who was
The Gong Show.
the Gong Show and
Yeah,
the dating game.
we
that
talked about him on
they
this.
sent and they sent him on these fabulous trips to the Middle East to do with these
Random.
winners and he was doing operations for the CIA according to him and according to his book.
According to his book.
But
The government
so it
would never
didn't surprise me
confirm
as
it.
much as I thought because, like I said, I just kept scrolling when I saw it because I was like, "Oh,
okay.
yeah, makes sense."
I'm listening through Chaos right now by Tom O'Neill, and I am about a third of the way through.
If you don't remember, we talked about that exclusively right before we started the MK Ultras.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
go back and listen to that episode if you hadn't yet.
Yeah. And the more I listen to that and like the experiences with the people that he tried to talk to, the people he successfully talked to, the stories that he came across, the more convinced I become that the CIA operates a lot in like the movie and music industry, which it makes a lot of sense because most of what they're doing is supposed to be like subversive influence stuff. And what influences the culture and the way people think more than movies and music, media, all like big media.
Yep.
Nothing. Like that's it. Like that's the biggest thing. And so I think there's way more of that going on than most people realize. Probably more than any of us realize. Honestly.
Well, and how long has propaganda been part of just mainstream media and stuff when propaganda is
Mainstream media
happening?
became mainstream media.
It's just
that's the crazy thing.
been there, so why not? It just makes sense that there are agents and things that are in the industry.
Yeah.
I think the first rule of propaganda is you have to somehow convince people that it's not propaganda.
Yeah, good
because
point.
if they know it's propaganda, it's worthless.
Right.
And the typical average American, maybe not as much recently, but I feel like prior to 2020, the average American did not realize how much propaganda our media throws at us.
Yeah, it was just entertainment. It was, it was just
And
news and entertainment, and that's it.
And even to this day, like it's nuts how much propaganda is shoved at us.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So much propaganda. Have you, okay, and maybe this isn't propaganda, maybe it's not, but have you seen the reviews of the new Lilo and Stitch movie?
I've seen the Lilo and Stitch movie.
The new one?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end of the movie, instead of her keeping, I can't remember names, it's been so long since I've seen Lilo and Stitch.
Right.
So-
Nani, the sister.
Yeah,
Nani.
yes, instead of keeping Nani. So
Nani keeping Lilo.
Hawaiians are upset because the field that she went to study in, the best place to study it is in Hawaii.
Oh, the marine biology.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she wouldn't have
And
to
so
go
she
anywhere.
left the island, gave her native born daughter up to a white neighbor, right?
No.
Was it not white?
No, she's
okay,
Hawaiian.
just a neighbor.
Yeah.
So it was a neighbor.
Yeah.
Okay. So gave it up to a neighbor to go study at an inferior place to study. And so Hawaiians are like upset at this because
Yeah.
it's basically propaganda. Because in Hawaiians have, I feel like having conversations with Hawaiians that I've known in my life, because we've had students, I've had some of my best friends are Hawaiian. They look at the American propaganda a lot more similar to how like Native Americans look at our government propaganda and like media and stuff like that.
Right. That makes
And
sense.
so they are upset about the fact that she gave her daughter up and to go study mainland because it's presenting this narrative that you can't really like achieve your dreams without leaving the island and getting, basically in their mind they're saying, reprogrammed on the island or on the mainland.
Right. That's interesting. I don't know. I didn't pick up on that, but I'm not from the islands either. So
Also, yeah, and fully admit I didn't see it. I'm not even a huge Lilo and Stitch original fan. I just have heard and seen some of the backlash coming from people that I know.
I don't know. Entertainment wise, I thought it was a great movie. I recommend it. I couldn't read too much into it, but then again, like I said,
been a long time
I didn't
since
look at it through that scope. So,
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about propaganda is that the best propaganda is going to be subtle. It's going to be the super subtle, Rosie the Riveter style propaganda.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's we're empowering, we're encouraging, uplifting. That is going to be the best propaganda that exists. Propaganda is crazy. Did you know that actually now it's like most countries, they study American propaganda as like a course in high school?
Yep.
And how we study like the third regime,
The Nazgul.
yeah, the mustache men from WW2. We study their propaganda, but we don't study any other propaganda, and everybody else studies American propaganda. So
would
apparently,
venture to
American propaganda is
say-
pretty good.
And I would venture to say that Nazgul propaganda was not particularly subtle.
Well, and here's the thing too, like when mainstream like social studies classes in schools started trying to teach American propaganda and things like that, then they start coming in all the protests with like
Peaceful protest.
with the racial things, and like the school shouldn't be teaching race-based type things and things like. Well, that's what a lot of the propaganda was back
Yeah.
then, and if you're going to teach about it, you got to talk about it,
Right,
so
right.
yeah, there's been a lot of protests
Yeah.
against that too. So
Speaking of race-based protests, I want to touch on it briefly. You guys, if you've listened to this show long enough, my stance is, I think in America, I think we need to make the immigration easier, cheaper, and faster. And I think that instead of focusing on streamlining and making immigration easier, we fight over the status of legal and illegal and all that other stuff. And in my mind, I think that it's programming. I think they're trying to program us to argue with each other so that they don't have to address the issue that immigration sucks in America.
yeah, I agree.
It needs to be streamlined, it needs to be cheaper, and it needs to be faster. And I think that would solve both parties' problems. But the stuff going on in LA,
How
it's big
dare
enough.
you.
I know.
How dare you propose a solution?
Yeah, but it's popping off and it's getting big. But the number one thing that I think is interesting about the LA stuff is the very similar to the 2020 riots that we saw, the protests, however you want to label it, protest, riot. I'm not going to make a distinction on this podcast. The LA protests, riots, however you want to distinguish it. The one thing that it has in common is there's random unmarked trucks with people wearing full body armor and masks dropping off pallets of bricks strategically across the city.
More chia.
Weird, right?
Little
Yeah.
ammo.
Adding ammo. And then those pallets are being thrown
interesting.
at the vehicles and like decimating the police vehicles and all that other stuff. And also another thing is, as somebody who has a lot of friends in law enforcement, like I very highly doubt I know anybody that's going to be in LA out and doing this stuff. But just remember that like those officers are just trying to do their job, and your fight isn't against that individual officer. Your fight is against the system, the political party, whatever your fight is. It's not that officer. So let's make sure that everybody gets home safe. Okay. Anyway, that's all I have to say about the LA stuff. I don't know if you guys wanted to add to that, but
Well, I was just going to say, like, do you guys know the history of like where these immigration laws and everything got crazy with Mexico? It was during World War II. So like, and I learned this in college, in an agriculture class of all things, because during World War II, we had so many soldiers being sent over to Europe that there was nobody to work here. And so they opened up the southern border, invited Mexican people to come up and live and be temporary Americans. And then when people started coming back from the war, they wanted their jobs back. And that's where that whole, they're coming to take our jobs
interesting
thing originated, because then how do we get everybody back out of our country? Now, it was that mentality during that time. We invited them in. They provided a service at a way cheap cost compared to what they were paying the Americans. And then they turn around when the war is over, they turn around and say, okay, now get out.
Yeah.
okay.
So
let's think.
I got a theory.
I've got a really good one too. So
Okay.
yours better be good, or I'm going to kick you.
So I'm going to guess that probably what happened then was, at the time, the OSS, before it was the CIA, probably was like, what can we do with these people? Because we can't let them keep the jobs of our legitimate citizens. How about we just have them run heroin?
I mean, it's possible.
And that's how the cartel started.
As involved as our CIA has been in the trafficking game. And I'm just going to leave it at that, because it's not even just the white substances. Anyway, so that was a good point. I'm going to see your point and raise it one.
Okay.
So let's think backwards. So maybe the reason that over the previous administration, just speaking Biden's administration, wonder if the reason they were letting in and trying to encourage as many people to come here as possible is because they were preparing for a war.
I like that theory. That's not a...
Ooh.
I mean,
an interesting one.
Historically, that has been kind of it's been a thing. Like, if we don't have people to work, that was part of the, you talked about Rosie the River. That was part of the reason that was such a big propaganda too, because we needed workers during the war.
Yeah.
Who's going to do all the work? It's, women are going to come in, immigrants are going to come in, they're going to do those jobs.
Right.
And
what is one of the things that Trump did run on was that he wanted to get out of all wars.
Yeah.
And so if he's not going to bring us into a war, quote unquote, I'm not even, and I'm right or wrong, but if he's not bringing us into a war, then we wouldn't, quote unquote, need all of those immigrants here.
That's true. And this is all just what if stuff.
Pure
Absolutely just what ifs, but we don't.
It's
interesting thought. Yeah.
And coming from a biblical perspective, because I have to do that because I'm a pastor and this is what I do. If you read scripture and you believe scripture, you see that there will be at least one more major world war that does happen. And there are interesting things that are happening on the global scale that do align with those prophecies that do talk about the eventual world war that a third of Earth's population would pass away in.
Speaking of prophecies from the Bible, did you happen to see, I just saw a TikTok on this morning, and it was just one, and I didn't look any farther into it yet, but an archaeologist claims to have found Jesus' body.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you see that?
Yeah. And there's specifically a biblical prophecy where Jesus himself says, they will find me, or when people claim they find my body in the desert, don't believe them.
Do not, yeah.
And all of a sudden, in the desert, they're like, and they get pretty big news sources covering it, that they allegedly found Jesus's body underneath one of the pyramids. And you know, everything in the pyramids, they're talking about there is underground stuff and blah, blah, blah. It's interesting. I did see that. That was crazy. We are so far away from mind stuff right now, but I really like the way
I disagree. I think this is all mind. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
I mean, it is propaganda is mind stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
It is manipulation. It is control.
Right.
It is all those things we've been talking about.
Potentially
And
using mass hypnosis.
Have you ever, not even ever, just recently, have you recently had a conversation with somebody who, you know, we kind of use the terms like red pilled, blue pilled, you know, from the Matrix movies or whatever, but somebody who like legit 0% believe any conspiracy theory that exists?
You know, I was kind of that guy, to be honest, before I started listening to you and your podcast. And actually, when we'd get together for family stuff,
Sure.
When we'd get together for family stuff, you know, Tanner would throw out some conspiracy theories, and I would just kind of stare at him, and then we usually had some really good conversations.
Great conversation from it. Yeah.
Really, really good conversations. But I was very skeptical. But like with the show and research, and you know, being part of this, I don't know. Like one of you guys said it at least last week or the week before. You said, you know, that once you kind of see it all laid out, it's easy to understand why people have these theories. Not to say these theories are true.
Absolutely.
But it's easy to say it's plausible. It's possible, you know.
Are you referring to when I said most conspiracy theories are based in fact? It's just, it comes down to the interpretation. Like how people interpret it is where you get the crazy sounding stuff.
Yeah.
It's mostly there.
Yeah. Have you seen that comedian? Gosh, I can't remember what his name is. He's a black guy, a little bit huskier. And he's like, so people that don't believe in any conspiracy theories, he's like, you're telling me that not once that you believe the government has lied to you? And he's like, I am a father of one child, and I lie to that kid all the time. and that for me is kind of where I'm at on it. Is, do I 100% believe in everything that we talk about on the show? No. That's why we leave it open up for interpretation, because we want to leave a little bit of credence to them. Like, you know, but I approach them. I try to approach every conspiracy theory with an open mind. Take out of it what's true and leave, you know, it's a Christianese term, but the chew on the meat and spit out the bone of theology. You know, when someone's theology is off, chew on the meat of it and spit out the bone of what is off. And so take what you can. It might not even be just a Christianese thing, but Christians use that term a lot. And so with conspiracy theories, I try to approach everything kind of in the same light of like, what can I glean from this that could be real and chew out the bone or spit out the bone? And over time, I've kind of realized that I have an appreciation for conspiracies that I don't believe in, but it's hard because a lot of times when you listen to podcasts, they will present it as either they 100% believe in this and everything confirms everything, or they present it as though like they are super skeptical and they almost like make fun of the conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And when I was specifically looking up stuff about Tartaria, it was so hard to find somebody, a podcast or a documentary that just presented information. Everybody had their own propaganda, their own personal take that they wanted to let known. And it's interesting. And what we try to do is present stuff in a way that eliminates the personal bias as much as I possibly can. It's not possible to eliminate all your bias, but try to eliminate as much personal bias as I can and just present information and allow people to just kind of snack on it a little bit, enough that they look for themselves. Because, like you said, my goal is to get them interested enough that they start actually looking into this stuff a little bit more than just what we're talking about.
Right. And how many times you have, like, you got a random text from me because I was listening to an episode and I'm like, dude, you didn't talk about this or this or this. Yeah. And he's got me looking up stuff where I'm like, man, did you know this existed too? And we get into conversations outside of the show.
Right.
Because that's the way I feel this show is built, is so that it's conversation starters.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think it's a super healthy exercise too, in just training yourself to recognize the nature of actual conspiracy, like probable or at least plausible, legitimate conspiracies, because there are real ones. Like, I don't think anybody's denying that. And if you are, you're idiot. I'm sorry. But like, if you research a lot of them, you start to notice patterns in the way that, because conspiracies have things in common. There's always patterns there. There's always things that's like, okay, that kind of gives it away that there's credibility here. This is probable. This is plausible. This is at least worth looking into. And the more you look at it and the more you research them, the more you'll start to pick up on those things, and you'll start to go, that one's probably not, that one could be, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's a healthy thing to like practice recognizing those and like being able to distinguish, like, oh, this might actually be a real thing that's worth paying attention to.
Yeah.
So that's why I like this.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just kind of fun. If I'm honest, it is just a lot of fun to just go, did you dig into this? Because this sounds a little crazy.
Yeah. And exactly.
It's just fun.
And that's kind of why also we kind of bring the approach of like, do your own research, because we're not experts. You might like, don't trust us as experts. We're not experts. But also, I've listened to a lot of podcasts where people get on and they're talking and they're presenting themselves as an expert. And the more they talk, the more you realize they're just full of crap. But they present it as those are experts. And so people listen to them as though they are experts and give them the credit that they don't deserve, And so we try to prevent that. Like, don't give me any credit. But I will say though, doing this show, the one conspiracy theory that's not even a conspiracy, it's just fact, that broke me a little bit was the MK Ultra. Because when someone brings up MK Ultra, there is this aura about it that it is a conspiracy theory, that it might not have even existed. And like when you first bring it up, it's like, well, did it really exist, or is it? And the more we just right off the bat start researching it, and we realize,
no, this is real.
They provided as much information as they were comfortable providing. And what didn't they share? And even if they shared 100% of what they did, that is still on the table, and it is fact, and it is haunting what they did.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine I guarantee they hid so much stuff that they were able to prevent from sharing. Yeah. But even if they didn't, it's on the table. It's there. It's real. MK Ultra was real. They talked about it in hearings. You can access that information. It's not even a conspiracy, but because of really good propaganda, they've been able to push us into this narrative that it's a conspiracy, and it's not. And if MK Ultra is real, which it is, because MK Ultra is real, so many of these other conspiracy theories now have credibility. They have credibility because MK Ultra was real.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so you want to convince people that the rest of these conspiracy theories are not real. You have to discredit the quote unquote original, which it wasn't the original. Like, Operation Artichoke and the other ones were not even the originals. They were more of the originals, and those were all real. And so each program led into it. And the fact that there was, Operation Artichoke, which eventually, and so even MK Ultra itself was 3 different programs.
Yeah.
What was the program that came after?
Well, and then you get to the point where you're looking at those conspiracy theories that became more than theories because they're provable. They let us know that stuff, like what, and that was decades ago.
Yeah.
where did that go from there? Like, where are we at now? Like, we're not going to know for another 30 years. It's going to come out. Remember back in 2025 when this happened and this happened, that was this. And, it's just crazy.
Yeah, that's even Wendigoon's grandchild will make a video about
the stuff that we're
2020
that he talked about. Well, that's with the Diddler case. The amount of stuff of conspiracies that are being confirmed through that trial. I don't even want to go into a lot of it, but how there's the term for they use the term pizza. Does that ring a bell to you?
Yeah. For like 911 operators.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just different. Okay. So in the trafficking world, the code name for adolescence is pizza.
I didn't
During the Diddler, so that's a big conspiracy theory because there was the whole Pizzagate thing. I know that's what it was. So that was a conspiracy, and that's still considered a big, huge conspiracy that all these celebrities are involved in this trafficking thing. During the Diddler case, they have confirmed that they do use the term pizza for that. And so if this is being confirmed through this trial, but these things are being confirmed, but they're not making headlines. They're not making.
Nobody's talking
about it.
Yeah.
And so it's confirming these conspiracy theories, and they're not like, they're kind of like this trial is confirming so many conspiracy theories, and it's not covered. And even the people who are covering it are like getting veiled threats and stuff like that to the point where like there's this one girl, and I'm not even going to share the handle or anything like that, but she's an in courtroom media covering the trials and has already had people threatening to leave it at that, threatening her. And she's had to move hotels that she's been staying in like 5 or 6 different times while covering this trial. And
nobody's talking about that either.
Right. And
nobody's talking about any of it.
And now whether or not, and maybe she's exaggerating things, cool. But she is an in-court, you can actually verify she is an in-court media covering the case. And it's just crazy. It's crazy, dude.
And it makes you wonder too, like the people the conspiracy theorists, because they're the ones saying those things and everybody kind of blows them off and is like, well, yeah, whatever. Then when those things are confirmed, they're just facts that are confirmed and nobody goes back and says, wait, people have been talking about this for a while.
Yeah. Well, things like JFK and MLK, stuff like that, like this stuff comes out like, hey, this is like confirmed. This is the government did this.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, okay.
Have you ever?
What do you mean, okay?
Have you ever gone back? Have you ever gone back and watched the? What's the conspiracy theorist that's just like chaos? Turning the frogs gay.
Oh, Alex Jones.
Alex Jones. Have you ever gone back and watched his?
Dude, he's spot on.
Where he predicted 9/11.
Yeah.
6 months before 9/11, he was on his news channel, and he straight up called it. He said that they're going to destroy the Twin Towers, and they're going to blame it on Osama bin Laden. He literally called it 6 months before it happened.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And
that is crazy.
You can actually go back and watch it. And so that's something I'm going to encourage you. Don't believe me. Don't take my word for it. But go back. You can actually, in 6 months beforehand. Now, for me, we've talked about this a little bit on the show. I think Alex Jones is propaganda himself. I think he is an asset that they present the things that they're going to do with the crazy stuff at the same time to discredit conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
I think that's what his purpose is. I think he's there to be just truthful enough to create an aura that the truth of the conspiracy theories, and then presents even like hardcore crazy ones that are like offensive, that are fake, to discredit all conspiracy theories.
Right.
That's what I think his purpose is.
It's kind of the idea, too, where, like, in history, people that have been given the ability to predict the future are always gifted or cursed with the idea that they can't tell anyone.
Oh, yeah.
Like, anybody they tell them isn't going to believe them anyway, so you can't change the future, even if you know what the future is going to be. So a lot of times, that that retrospect and looking back and going, oh, I guess they were right, but
that's crazy thing. Because if you knew for a fact that, let's say there is going to be a fake, what are they, I can't remember what the term for it is in the conspiracy world, the false flag event. There's going to be a false flag event, and for a fact that we're going to then go to World War III over that. And it's going to happen on, I'm just going to pick on you, on September 19th.
Thank you.
And and so for a fact that is going to happen, and you start telling people how crazy you're going to sound. If right now, we're 6 months out, I start telling people that, either when it happens, people are going to assume you were part of it, or they're not even going to know that you predicted it.
Yeah, or let's say you could change it, and you keep it from happening. Now you're just crazy because it didn't happen.
Yeah.
You prevented it. Now nobody believes you anyway.
Screwed.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well,
yeah.
or
you're just
the option that I lean towards the most is that anybody who can actually do anything about it already knows about it, and if they already know about it and they find out you know about it, then they're going to silence you.
Yeah.
So,
wow, that got deep.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that all goes into, and that's where, it goes into all of the propaganda machine and the programming, and that goes into all of that stuff, because we were kind of talking about it, and it's like, yeah, because if all of a sudden you start presenting this information, you're either going to disappear, or even if you're presenting everything on social media, they'll just shadow ban you, and nobody will get views.
Yeah, or they put you on some show where you get a chance to talk, but you look crazy.
Right.
And they discredit you because you're on, this certain show that just is silly.
To kind of tie back to your Alex Jones theory and tie that back to what I was saying before about like how much of like the media world is is part of or controlled by or at least influenced by the CIA or some sort of agency. I think the presentation of it all, I think a lot of that is propaganda. Like you think about some of the people that have made it big in like the music industry or in Hollywood, and it's just like there's no way that somebody actually looked at you and went, yeah, I can make them famous and they're worth making famous. No, they're controlled. They have to be. Like there's just too much lack of talent,
right,
and any sort of value in so much of that. Like you just gotta, I don't know.
That is kind of crazy because there are so many talented, musicians out there these days. Mm-hmm. The TikTok shows there's so much
many
talent out there. So how does somebody become famous in today's environment? It's weird. And even just the algorithms are king, and
definitely.
I have that one random post on TikTok that went viral. And if you're listening to this, man, we appreciate you guys coming over from TikTok. It's still the most commented on and liked post I have, and that was a couple months ago. And it still is generating more than 1,000 views and likes and stuff every week. And the thing that made that go viral was it just happened to have been favored by the algorithm. And no matter how much you purposely try to do things in accordance to the algorithm it just kills posts so easily. And we were talking about even posts that I've shared shorts from our show, and there'll be just a single word in it that gets flagged and the post gets taken down, or and it's crazy. And so if our government, going to the Facebook controversy, our government basically went in, and this has been confirmed by the Zuck, that our government if they didn't force them, they at least paid them to affect certain narratives over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And if that's not our government controlling the propaganda machine And so I feel like social media has become the new propaganda machine.
Yeah.
And so that's a
Oh, it
weird,
100% is.
weird,
Yeah.
yeah. And so my train of thought on that. I'm sorry, we went from musicians to social media as propaganda machines. But so now social media can literally find somebody and go, "Hey, we're going to make you famous."
Yeah.
And there's nothing we can do about it. They're going to get famous.
Well, here's another thing that's kind of crazy. I was listening to the radio. It was just a random radio station on a road trip, and it was, they were just talking, and one of the guys pointed out that some study they did to see how many bot accounts are on social media.
Yeah.
It is over 50%.
The dead internet theory.
Yeah. It is over 50% of the accounts that are in all of across the board social media. More than half of them are AI accounts. They're just bots.
Okay.
It's the dead internet theory.
Yeah.
Do you remember us talking about that at all? Yeah.
Yeah, but confirmed with on public radio, they were talking about it.
Yeah.
So
it's the dead internet theory started as a conspiracy theory, but it seems like all of the evidence the points to it now that things are starting to come out.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull us back a step, and I apologize because this is going to sound random, but my gears have been turning. So thinking about the random people that get famous, do you think that some of them are hand selected because of talking about going back to the hypnosis thing and picking people out of the crowd that are manipulatable? Do you think people get pulled for that reason and then planted because of that? And then once you've been put in that position, now you're out of your comfort zone. There's authority. There is a new environment. And then they start pushing them to work.
Have you ever seen the movie The Recruit?
No.
Not.
Check it out.
How old is it?
Check
When
it
is
out.
from?
It's gosh, I would say late 90s or
I was going to say, this already
2000s.
sounds adjacent to the net. It sounds like that similar, the similar kind of
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got
Big Brother's pulling your strings.
Yeah, it's got the actor. Who's the actor that's playing the Penguin in the new Penguin? That's the main actor that's
I'm
in
so
it.
out of the loop
Colin.
right now.
It's Colin Farrell. Does that sound right?
Farrell.
Yeah. Does that sound right? He's in it. But yeah,
Will Ferrell's brother or whatever.
I don't think he's related to Will Ferrell, but I suppose maybe.
I have no clue.
Maybe
Fact
they don't
check
look
it.
anything alike, but
Fact check it. Comment.
like 14th cousins,
Will
6
Ferrell and
times
Colin
removed.
Farrell related. I have not even.
So that's kind of what you're like. He goes in CIA recruit,
Yeah.
and the recruiting tools they use and things like that to the tests they put him through and everything else. It's interesting because it's things like what we're talking about.
Okay, I'm going to take another step back to something we were talking about in the weight room earlier.
They're not related.
Okay, thank you so much. I was
full stacks.
it was destroying me. I needed to know that. I'm okay now. Do you think that some of that media stuff, in terms of that, is leftover government operations?
Oh,
stuff?
maybe. So what
Kinda
Phil,
like the military?
Yeah. So what Phil's
things?
talking about is we've got some military relatives, and some of them are pretty high up, and they work in war games, so they can't talk about anything they're doing ever. But that's kind of it. They create war scenarios and battle scenarios, and then when they're done with them, the video game companies buy those from them, and they change all the names and the locations, and then they get their scenarios for war games from the military. And so Phil, I was kind of, when you started talking about the gym, I kind of had the same thought. Is this did this really happen?
Yeah.
And somebody's just bought the rights to tell that story,
Right?
Or even
Even did the government decide they wanted to put it out there?
or they
based it off of the
softening us and saying, oh, this is just a movie. It's not really like that.
Right.
And maybe it is really like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But check that movie out, because like I said, it's
will be watching.
It's
I'll
interesting.
check it out.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about with all of the different movies. We were talking about a little bit in the gym that you know what? Go ahead. I'll just encourage people to look it up on their own, but to look into the sheer number of movies, video games, and music that the government has either produced or they own a certain amount of investment into, those kinds of things. And it is crazy how much our government actually invests in our media. And so if our government is investing in our media, why? Like with the Doge cuts. And you know how our government was paying for 12 million or something like that Disney subscriptions. No, they weren't. They were paying for.
You didn't get your free government Disney?
I was gonna say they were paying for $12 million, or well, it'd be $5 million, so it'd be $60 million. So they were paying $60 million a month to invest in Disney for their own reasons. You know it. You know they weren't paying for 12 million free Disney.
So a little money laundering through the entertainment world. I don't know. Makes sense.
I mean, did you listen to our episode on the?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know where you're going with it. Yeah.
So how much of? Yeah,
it's funny how much of this stuff goes full circle. We've talked about that before. Like, I mean, something pops up and you're like, wait a minute. And then it just kind of circles back on itself, you know?
It's crazy. And I think that was something that was an unintended consequence of, and part of the reason I've started to buy into so many more conspiracy theories is because they kind of go full circle, and you start to see the bigger picture, and you start realizing, oh yeah, this makes sense because this makes sense. And then again, kind of going back to MK Ultra, because that's the thread that got pulled. So now because that thread was pulled, everything that's adjacent to it starts being pulled.
Kind of a domino
and
effect.
then you start pulling out, and all of a sudden now we're looking at it and we're like, oh,
or Jenga.
What is this? You know, and so some of these fringe conspiracy theories have a lot of weight to them because of the failure of them to be able to keep MK Ultra under wraps, secretively.
The question is, will people actually care enough about the fact that is now open information available that you can look up and verify?
Now,
will they care enough?
I know it's been free for 50 years. If they haven't cared yet, they aren't going to. I literally had a conversation with somebody just the other day, and it was somebody my age, and I was talking about MK Ultra just briefly. It just came up, and they were like, "Oh, that's a fun conspiracy theory," and I was like, "Well, I mean, it was real," and they were like, "Well, that's not really proven," and I was like,
"Dog, what?"
And I'm pretty sure it was a he, and I don't remember who it was or the context, but they were like, "That's just a conspiracy theory, right?" And I was like, "Homie, your world, I love you, man.
Bless your heart."
I was like, "Your world's about ready to collapse real quick. You're this picture perfect world you live in right now. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to ruin it for you." So no, MK Ultra was real. They had hearings on it, and you can go watch the hearings. Have fun. You know, I was like, but yeah.
So fun story at school.
If you take the blue pill.
The choice is yours. How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
How much time do you got? So I was at the middle school. I'm teaching, right, and we're getting towards the end of the year, and the expectations to turn all your assignments in and all that stuff. And I'm talking to one of my students, and he says something about MK Ultra. And I was just kind of look, and I just listened to the podcast about MK Ultra, and so I kind of looked at him, gave him the eyebrow, and he looked at me and he goes, "Next thing you know, you're going to be giving us LSD and messing with our brains," and then walked off. And I was like, "How doesn't this middle schooler know all of this about MK Ultra?" And I've talked to adults that have no idea what you're talking about.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think part of the reason why I buy into the concept that World War III is going to be sooner rather than later is because the ability to control the narrative is getting harder for the governments. Mm-hmm. So one of two things that either have to happen. Either there's going to have to be some major shutdowns of any and all free thinking media, which plausible that could happen as well.
Right.
Like if they start like this show, you're not going to find this show. You know what I mean? Like things like this.
Right.
Or they're just going to have to cause a distraction that's so major that and so catastrophic that everybody then buys back into what the government is saying.
1984.
Like 64 billion volcanoes. going off at the same time?
All of them. There's more. There's
I know,
been like
there's
5 more big ones since last week.
Well, when World War III happens, I think we've already established Tanner's going to be throwing bodies. I'm gonna be cheering from the sidelines, and Phil
be in the volcano.
Phil's gonna trip and accidentally die somehow.
Oh, don't make me that guy. No, I'm not gonna slip on metal and face plant.
He's gonna get an infection.
I'm assuming that was a World War Z reference. Yeah, slipping. Or at least that's what I was thinking of.
Dude, it's been a minute since have you ever read the book?
No, I have not read the book, but everybody that I know that has read the book and watched the movie said the movie was not very...
It's hard to turn the book into a movie because the book's it's like journal entries from like a bunch of different people. It's not like a story. Oh. It's like different people's journal entries on how it happened. And so the book is
Have you ever watched Looper?
Yes, I do like
dude,
it. Yeah.
That's a crazy... I came across...
Wrapping your mind around that whole...
Dude, that's such a crazy movie.
Yeah.
That and Interstellar, two of my... I gotta watch those again.
I saw something about a new... And I didn't click it to read it, but I thought of you when I saw it, that somebody came up with a new theory with Interstellar, and they said it completely changes the movie. But I didn't click on it, so I can't tell you.
Interesting.
But now you're going to be super curious.
Yep.
That reminds me of a meme I saw. It was a dude messaging a pet company, and he's like, "Hey, if you knew that somebody was buying your hamsters to feed their snakes,
I did see that.
would you still sell to them?" And the pet store was like, "No, goodness no." And he's like, "Okay, then I will go and create a new account under a new name, and I will purchase the hamsters at random, but you won't know who I am. So every sale you make, you're going to be wondering, is this that guy that's just going to feed him to a snake?" I was like, bro.
Now, what if the government is doing that with all these conspiracy theories? They're throwing them throwing so many of them out there, we have to try and fish through them and guess which ones are real.
That's why I think this is such a healthy exercise.
Absolutely.
Filtering through them and trying to learn the patterns. I've said it probably a dozen times at this point, but I'm going to keep saying it because again, listening through Chaos, and Tom O'Neill kind of had a similar feeling with the amount of people that just declined to talk to him, wouldn't talk to him. It's like, why? There has to be a reason. There has to be a reason that you're resisting this so hard. The more you push back against my thought process, the harder you fight against it, the more vehemently you protest it, the more convinced I become that you're hiding something.
Yeah.
But and then it goes into the thought process of, okay, so then what personalities are just CIA plants or are paid by the government or whatever?
Yeah.
And I think the government does two things. I think one, they buy people out and they basically say, "Hey, I'll give you 50 grand to not talk about this ever again." And then people are like, "Man, 50 grand. Like, for real, if the government came to me and just, hey, CIA agent that's listening to me right now, just so you know, if you came to me for, let's say, $250,000, and you were like, hey, for $250,000, would you stop talking about MK Ultra? I would do it so fast."
Yeah.
Because that amount of money could change my family's life. Mm-hmm. And I would only be willing to do things like that over changing their life. Now, if he asked, would you lie for me? Probably not. But if I just stopped talking about MK Ultra, if all of a sudden we just stopped talking about MK Ultra and I buy a brand new house, like, the government paid me to stop talking about MK Ultra. It's okay. But I think that the government, for the bigger personalities, I think they approach them with money and just say, hey, stop talking about this. And nobody would ever have to know. Here's a non-disclosure. If you break this contract, you then owe us, that money back with interest of, 100% per year or something that would cripple them for the rest of their lives, and it's done. They're never going to talk about it again. That easy. So this is this is in my mind the most famous that I've come across of mass hypnosis. So in 1518 in Strasbourg, one single woman starts out in July 1518 in the bustling medieval city of Strasbourg. A woman named Frau Trophia stepped into the cobbled streets and just began to dance. And there was no music, no festival, nothing going on, just started dancing. feet stamping, like full body, like into the music, dancing. And at first, everyone just kind of was like, what is going on? Just kind of stared at her and she's crazy, whatever. But as time goes on, so day 1, that's that. Day 3, others start to join her. And so dozens more begin to just dance with her. And so she hasn't stopped dancing for 3 days by the time. So 3 days pass.
So no sleeping, no.
Just dancing.
Wow.
And on the 3rd day, others start to dance. Men, women, dozens other kids began to dance. Just almost like an invisible rhythm, basically, is how it was explained. They were, some of them that started dancing were auditorily screaming that they felt like their body began to heat up, and that some others started claiming that the saints were commanding them to move, to dance. The saints. That's the way it was described in history. And so others just seemed like they were in a trance almost. Their eyes were rolling back, doing all this just crazy stuff. By day 7, the authorities start to take notice. There's enough people joining in this dance, not sleeping, not doing, just dancing. So then the authorities start to investigate it, and they're thinking that something had to have like poisoned these people into dancing. They're saying that the way to treat it, so like the health officials, the way to treat whatever is going on, the dancing must be curing whatever is ailing them. So more start dancing because they think more start dancing almost out of fear. They don't want to catch this disease or whatever, and so they start dancing too. More people start dancing, and the crowd of this town of people dancing swells to over 400 people just dancing. No music, no nothing, just dancing. Nonstop dancing. Hot, swell a day, dancing. And then people started passing away, dying from dancing nonstop. And then all of a sudden, as just basically almost as quick as it started, it just started to slow. Some people stopped, and then it was just done. And by the end, so historically, the historical record basically says that that around 15 people per day died, and up to 100 total died from this mass hypnosis dancing event. And so this is, it's 1518, so it's documented through history, but even the biggest skeptic will confirm that there was a mass hypnosis event and people did die. The question is, how many died? And so
why?
Yeah, where's the hypnosis coming from?
And so and that's the problem with this mass hypnosis event, is that because it's a historical record, and then it's like they don't know what they're doing, they don't know what they're looking at, they don't know how to investigate it, they don't know why the first person started dancing. I would guess she's probably one of the ones that passed away from it, but literally dancing until you die, like multiple people. It's
Some
like
friggin' dorky alchemist was like trying to come up with how to make gold and accidentally made primitive LSD.
Yeah.
Dumped it into the water when it didn't make gold.
Weird, right?
Dude.
Yeah, that is
kind of a crazy
strange.
thing. And no matter what I think of like what could have caused it, because like, have you ever seen those the people that like, so everybody in the office, it starts out, everybody in the office is in on it, and then a person walks in who's not, and then there'll be a bell that rings, so everybody stands up.
Yep.
So the person that's not in on it is like, what the? So they stand up, and then eventually after about 5 or 6 times, they start cycling people out and new people in, and then they end the experiment with nobody being in the office, having been a part of the experiment, and then they'll be like, hey, why are you standing up? And they're like, I don't know. And they start asking everybody, and nobody knows why they're standing up, just everybody is standing up.
Right, it's just like an extreme form of peer pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but it started with one person.
But to death, though, that's the crazy thing. Like, if I see somebody dancing, they're all by themselves, I'll go join in just so they don't look so weird.
Right, to have fun. Yeah.
But as soon as I get hungry, I'm out.
Yeah.
When it's bedtime.
And it's hot.
I'm done.
And no music. It's an interesting mass hypnosis case.
I'm so like, maybe it's specifically for dancing, but like I feel moderately immune to that because, as Red will tell you, I used to go to Knox and just be there because that's where my friends were at, but I wouldn't dance.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so averse to dancing.
Knox-
You can't get me into it, dog.
So fun fact, Knox actually plays a role in my coming to Jesus.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, I had a friend, so they invited
knew
me.
that.
So they invited me to Knox first, and they promised it with there'd be the good-looking girls
yeah.
there. And then they said, hey, you should come to Chi Alpha on Tuesday because there's good-looking girls there. And I was like, well, there was at Knox, so this must be a frat thing. So I'll go to the Chi Alpha thing. And sure enough, there were good-looking girls there, and Jesus, apparently, and I got saved. I got tricked. Knox. So yeah, Knox plays a small.
Now, were
small
you
part.
tricked, or was like the universe showing you this is your path? You need to, you know what I'm saying? Did God open the doors, and you were like,
How-
I'm coming on in, or
I have a
you know,
question.
wrap your mind around that.
Both probably, but I would honestly say on one side of things, had they been completely honest and been like, hey, do you want to come to this church thing where we sing worship songs and we listen to a sermon? And I'd be like, probably not. But they were like, there's good looking girls there, and I didn't know it was a church thing. And so I was like, Chi Alpha, that's like fraternity, right? That sounds like a fraternity sorority thing.
Right.
Yeah, buddy. And so, but now, like you said, could it have been God or the Holy Spirit orchestrating that? Very possible.
I have a question. How much time do you think elapsed between your dream about becoming a pastor but not a normal pastor and you getting invited to Knox Indoor Chi Alpha?
So the dream, the vision or whatever that I had would have probably been around March or April, and then of 2010. And then I got invited to Chi Alpha in late September of 2010. So like 6 months. Is that 6 months? 10, 9, 8, 7.
Yeah, it's about right.
6, 7 months. It's probably around, yeah. So it was within the same year. It was slightly before I went to jail,
Oh.
which would have been May, right? May of 2010?
I don't remember.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good time.
I'm just I'm slowly but surely building a timeline for you.
Oh, yeah.
Like you've given like all the major bullet points enough times. I have a general idea, but like I'm getting a better picture of all
But
that.
that's interesting. So the person that invited you to Chi Alpha told you what you needed to be told to get you to Chi Alpha.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Not the standard Chi Alpha invite.
I say, and she didn't lie.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good-looking
Right.
girls in Chi Alpha at that time.
Yeah, because I got invited to Chi Alpha when I was up here, but I was a non-traditional student. I had kids, everything else, and they just straight up came to me and said, hey, we have this Christian group on campus, and we get together and worship, and you should come with us sometime. Here's our meetings. And I was like, oof. Well, I don't want to call him out because he's a decent dude. He was a good,
Text it to
good
me.
friend that I made, but
Text it
yeah.
to
Tell
me.
us after.
Because I know the Chi Alpha history and lore now. Because I mean, I'm like,
Right, yeah.
I'm a quarter of the Chi Alpha history.
Right.
now.
And I wouldn't, I mean, I'm not sure what you would have to have told me to join Chi Alpha at that point. Cause like I said, I was a non-traditional student. I was married, had kids.
Right.
I was driving back and forth. Like I was not, Chi Alpha wasn't for me at all.
Bro, I would have said the same thing. I was very involved in drinking until I forgot, and so Chi Alpha was not for me either. But yeah, exactly. So it's like the one thing that would have probably got me to go to Chi Alpha is what got me to go to Chi Alpha, and it wasn't Jesus. You know, well,
Right.
it was, but you know what I mean. Like, you know, if like God's playing a part in that, but them revealing that it was Jesus would have been like, I'm good. But me not knowing it was yeah. Anyway.
Right. And the first time I went to college, I was in Pi Kappa Phi fraternity. And that was a big part of the reason I dropped out of college the first time.
So Tanner, would you say
It was
that,
not a Christian fraternity.
would you say that you were propagandized into going to Chi Alpha?
Yeah, I mean, are we defining propaganda as?
But
Manipulation,
but it wasn't.
false advertising. Well,
But it
not
wasn't
false advertising.
false. Yeah,
no,
it
that's
was.
true.
It was true,
Well,
and
not all propaganda has to be false.
and I think that in this person that like I know their intentions. And their intentions were, and maybe I'm speaking for them in this, but they saw me hurting and knew there were some things that they were involved in that would help me, and they wanted to get me there in a way that they knew I would at least give it a shot.
Yeah.
I think that in my mind, like, I think they were being as loving as they possibly could be to me.
I didn't say they weren't.
And
Is all propaganda bad?
ooh,
Radio silence. I don't have an answer for that either. I don't. What would you call it?
It's intentional.
If it was
it's
good.
lying.
Because propaganda, anything that has been propagandized
lies.
is always linked with something that is bad. So
Right.
So what would be the good? Advertising isn't a bad, but that's not either because you're trying to sell something with advertising. So what would be?
I think if propaganda is lying, because not all propaganda is lying,
Right.
but if propaganda is lying, I think it's bad. Because I'm not a big
I can agree with that.
But man,
Would it be like some patriotism? I don't know, because there's a lot of propaganda that was developed not to make people look bad, but it was developed so that we believe in our
look
country.
better.
It's like when schools have the go Bulldogs or go Patriots or whatever your team is.
yeah.
And what if you're talking? I mean, what if the propaganda? What if the sides that are opposing each other aren't necessarily good or bad, and you're presenting propaganda that makes you look better than the other side without necessarily lying.
Well,
That's a great point. I never thought about that. Interesting.
I'm even thinking through but sometimes it can look good. I would almost, maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit. Excuse me.
I asked you to, so.
But sometimes things that seem good aren't good. They are. So maybe something that is good to me isn't good for everybody around me. So for example, some of the American propaganda basically presenting the need to have this big, huge house and this car and all the newest gadgets and all this other stuff and make money and be wealthy and all these other things. So that has almost led to a compliance in the reality of poverty worldwide is so there's entire regions that can't escape poverty because of their lack of resources. Mm-hmm. And sometimes as Americans, we promote this organization called Feed One, and I love Feed One. They're a phenomenal organization, and they go in and they educate and feed kids for $10 a month. Look into them. If you're thinking about donating to a charity or anything like that, you can set it up so you give monthly. This is not an advertisement for them in the sense of there's nothing on their end. This is just an organization I believe in and I love. Feed One goes into these areas that just can't get out and provide a stimulus to help them escape the poverty. Mm-hmm. But if you think about it, at $10 a month, $10, so $120 a year, you could literally change somebody's life. That they no longer are starving to death. They are no longer uneducated. You give them an education, you do it for $120 a year. That's pennies. That's a Walmart trip where I didn't think about my list a little and I threw some extra items on because they looked good in the moment, kind of a dollar amount. Mm-hmm. And this person now can eat and get an education for an entire year off of that. So propaganda shows me that I'm doing good and I'm wealthy and I'm doing this. So it's good for me, but it's almost lulling you into that. And so, like I said, I'm overthinking it, and I'm thinking sometimes if it's good for me, that doesn't necessarily is good for humanity.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to how you define propaganda. But
that's interesting. That's a good thought. Now, on the other hand, if propaganda were to prevent us from going to war or something like that,
right,
I could see it as being good. And basically, but that's the thing. But I feel like propaganda isn't ever used to prevent war.
Well, there was during the Vietnam War, there was some propaganda on the other side of things trying to get us out of it.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So the propaganda like that, and we still list that as propaganda.
Yeah.
I think it's.
I don't know.
But was that good for the soldiers who got drafted? Because then they were treated like crap when they came back.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's no net. It's good, but it's not net good.
I think just propaganda in general is just, would that qualify as mass hypnosis? like we've been talking about mass. Is that what we're doing? We're just hypnotizing everybody with the propaganda to believe a certain way and, and believe in certain truths.
Well, let's go back to what you defined, earlier in the show. You said that hypnosis is just, how did you word it? I don't remember. I'd have to go back and listen to it. But basically you said you control people's emotions you manipulate people's emotions by controlling their environment.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
something
like
that.
Yeah. That's basically propaganda. You're controlling
just
their
surrounding
reactions.
them with this.
Yeah.
This image, this thought process, this idea, whatever you want them to be thinking and
you're
believing.
Controlling the environment to a level that you then manipulate their thought processes.
Interesting.
Full circle. Propaganda is mass hypnosis. Is propaganda mass hypnosis?
I think on a low level,
I think we found a title.
There you go. Yeah, I think that at its base level, I think it's the same thing. It's just what level are you taking that to? I think propaganda is just super low level mass hypnosis. I think you could make that argument anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the moment it feels harmless until after the fact, and you look back and you're like, wow,
right?
I can't believe this was the accepted thing.
You can take that back to the question of can propaganda be good? If propaganda is just mass hypnosis can be used for good things. Beneficial things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So can propaganda... I mean, isn't that what friggin' like the anti-smoking ads are? Isn't that just propaganda against smoking?
Yeah, probably.
It all comes down to everyone's playing with your minds.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was. I'm sorry.
Brains.
Well, I mean, think about, but let's break this down even just a step further. Let's go to a biblical narrative, okay? Go back to Adam and Eve. So Adam's original...
way back.
Adam and Eve's original sin was believing propaganda by the enemy, yeah?
Dun.
Because he basically was saying, surely you will not die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so...
Were they actually hypnotized?
They weren't hypnotized, but he was manipulating them.
Well, yeah.
It was interesting.
The serpent presented himself as an authority.
So then was Noah trying to propagandize everybody around him by
the boat,
showing them hey, I'm building this boat, there's a flood coming? Was that propaganda? No, probably not.
Maybe.
Anyway, I don't know. I don't know.
We're getting way deep.
Yeah. Propaganda, that's dude. It's part of the benefit, or part of the propaganda is that there's no definitive line where propaganda begins and advertising ends,
Right. Yeah.
It's or
it scales.
They're so closely connected. Yeah. It's on a spectrum more than it is one thing or the other.
Right.
Well, it's even just advertising in general. There's certain rules to advertising, and even design, and you talk the rule of thirds, and you start getting into that. Well, that's all just recognizing what looks appealing so that you can make your product look appealing, which is in and of itself a propaganda, because you're not selling your product based off of the product. You're selling the product based off of the way that you can advertise it. That is now in the vein of propaganda.
Yeah, and who your target audience is, who your target buyers are,
Right. It depends on how you
get them to feel a certain way so they want to buy your product.
Because if you want to advertise to millennials versus, Zoomers, you're going to advertise completely different.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That in and of itself is then propaganda, because it's not based off of the product, it's based off of the advertisement.
Dopamine.
I mean, look at this Gorilla Mind can.
Does that
love
not
this
just
can. Scream they know their audience, and I am their audience.
Logo.
Yeah, dude.
That logo
I look
is
at that
cool.
logo, and I am the target audience of them. I guarantee it. Yeah, and it is working. I love Gorilla Mind.
I was going to say you're wearing a lot of gorilla stuff.
Oh yeah, I've got a gorilla shirt. Yeah, I do everything gorillas. I love gorillas. Yeah, interesting. Anyway. So, I guess on that note, is this show just propaganda? Because going back to, you were status quo, and then you start listening to the show, and now all of a sudden you're starting to think
why you got to do that to me?
Bro, I propagandized you into believing in conspiracy theories.
I think we are the propaganda antithesis. I think we are the absolute antithesis of propaganda.
Wait.
We are pushing the other way. We are
are anti-propaganda propaganda.
Wait,
Correct.
So by you listening to the show, did I just hypnotize you into buying into it so much so that now you're a part of the show?
This
Yes.
might be my favorite episode now. I love this so much. You don't know
That-
what way is up.
That makes so much sense, though. To be honest, like everything we've been talking about, absolutely. I was the show was entertaining, and it was wrapped up with this awesome bow of talking about bro stuff and energy drinks and just silliness, and then in the middle of it, go check this out. And guess what I did? I went and checked it out, and now I'm fully invested. So man, you're doing the thing you didn't even know you were doing it.
I knew you knew all along,
Exactly.
all along.
See, I keep trying to convince these energy drink companies you need to invest in our show. Like, people will buy it, and they're like, no.
We'll hypnotize them into buying
I'd be
it.
like, bro, look at my brother. I got him on the show.
Yeah, that was my favorite. That was what hooked me right away. Was
For real.
I'm so sorry
Oh
if you
my
were
gosh.
having trouble keeping up with what direction we're
Anyway,
facing.
yeah. Anyway,
Not really.
I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, like the show, comment, do those things.
Join the Discord.
And join the Discord.
Send him a message.
Send me a message.
so that he'll let you join
you
the
can't
Discord.
get in unless you send me a message. It's not possible.
it's a great little community. It's good.
It's
times.
a lot of fun. And again, there's all walks of life, all age groups. I think we have some 50, 60 year olds in there. It's great. It's a great group. Okay, bye.
Bye.
In the ancient days of giants, when the earth was wild and free, a creature roamed the valleys, cloaked in mystery. Is he born of angels' blood and man, a Nephilim so tall, or a shadow of the fallen, yet he the maker's call? He's a biblically accurate Bigfoot, with a lineage from the skies. Not a myth or legend, but a truth that never dies. Is he a remnant of the Nephilim, a titan standing tall? Or does he have the word of God upon him, the last to hear